Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. I hope you can hear me. So today, thank you again for the very kind invitation and very kind introduction. So today I'm going to tell you a bit about the European Medicines Agency, about patient engagement and some of the new initiatives as was mentioned post-COVID, or activities that are happening. So we work with experts from all across Europe, and the experts are not only medical and scientific, but patient experts as well. So what do we do as an agency? We facilitate development and access to medicines, evaluate the applications that are submitted by the pharmaceutical industry for marketing authorization. We monitor the safety of medicines across the life cycle and provide reliable information on human and also veterinary medicines to patients and healthcare professionals. So the centralized procedure, which is what was established with the European Medicines Agency, where we have one marketing authorization application, which leads to one authorization, and then we have the product information that's available in all EU languages at the same time. We have the medicine, once it's approved by EMA, is authorized in all EU countries at the same time, and we have a centralized safety monitoring. And as I mentioned before, we have access to a large network of experts in medicines regulation. So patient engagement really began from the time that the agency opened in 1995. In this timeline, I'm going to highlight a couple of the major milestones and just explain what they are as I go through. So, of course, we started talking with patients immediately as the agency was created. And then in the year 2000, the patients became the first members of a scientific committee. So here, this is very important because the scientific committees evaluate the medicines. And in this case, it was the orphan committee where the patients were written into the legislation and were there as full voting members. And then this continued with other subsequent legislations, such as the pediatric legislation, the advanced therapy, and then finally the safety legislation to create the pharmacovigilance and risk assessment committee. So here you'll see how we represent patients. So at the EMA, we consider that the patients who are members of the scientific committees or the management board represent the entire patient community across Europe. We work with a large variety of organizations. And as I mentioned, we have the creation of the Patients and Consumers Working Party in 2006. And when the members are there, they are representing their own organization. So they're representing the disease area that they're working for or the umbrella organization. We consult organizations on policies and guidelines, and they're also invited to workshop. And here again, they are representing their organizations. And then finally, as was mentioned during the introduction, we involve individual patients to bring their experience of living with condition and its treatment into different activities, which are listed here. I mentioned we work with a lot of organizations, and these organizations are what we call eligible organizations because they fulfill certain criteria to work with EMA. And then from the eligible organizations, we select the member organizations who become members of the Patients and Consumers Working Party. So the patient involvement in the medicine's regulatory life cycle, this is also very important because we have the 3 phases of the medicine's regulatory life cycle. Underneath this, I have the general activities that are performed by the committees that are described in the blue circles. So, for example, the Orphan Committee will designate a medicine and a disease as rare. The Advanced Therapy Committee will classify a medicine as either a cell, stem, or tissue therapy. So still talking about individual patients, we've seen that there's been an increase in the number of individual patients that have been recruited and work with EMA on different activities. As I mentioned, these are some of the activities where individual patients can bring their experience of living with a condition and its treatment. And if you are interested to register as a patient expert, the link is here on this green button that you can find in the slides. But I'll also leave my email address. And if you are interested in working with EMA to contribute as an individual patient or even to receive information, you can contact me. I was asked to also mention something about patient involvement in clinical trials. This here was just to show that there is a downwards trend in the number of clinical trials in Europe compared to the rest of the world. And for this reason, we really need to look at why this is happening and to try to make Europe a more attractive place for clinical trials. But what I wanted to specifically mention here, which is important for patients, is that there's going to be the creation of a multi-stakeholder platform advisory group. And this will also include patients. And there is actually a launch of expression of interest to join the advisory group that you can find, again, back here on the ACT EU website. So I'd like to move on now to just say a couple of words about patient experience data. And this, just to define, I'm sorry about how busy this slide is, but it's a definition of patient experience data, which includes patient-reported outcomes, patient preferences, but also patient engagement. This is to show the importance of why we want to bring patient experience data into regulatory decision-making. Patients are, of course, the end users of medicines. And as you know very well, you're experts in your own condition and you understand the treatments. You've had different treatments, and whether it's medical treatment or other, patient experience data helps to bring more patient relevant outcomes. But it's also here on this side, if we look at the other side of the arrow, that it can be at any stage during clinical trial design, which is also an area where we already bring patients into what we call scientific advice, where we've shown that patients make an impact and they have an added value. During the benefit risk assessment, if you remember when I showed you the evaluation, we talk about the benefits and risks there, and patients are systematically involved in these discussions. And also in the post-marketing pharmacovigilance or safety surveillance, patients are also involved there. So this is other areas and other ways that patient experience data can contribute. So just to conclude, and I think we're on time, engaging with patients and their organizations at the EMA brings everyday aspects of living with a disease into scientific discussions. This is very important because you know better than the scientific and medical experts what it means to live with osteoarthritis. It bridges the gap between clinical trial data and real-world data and hopefully increases trust as you get to see how the regulatory decisions are made. It's a stepwise approach, and as I showed you in our timeline, we keep evolving and keep adding new ideas and new methodologies based on exchanges with patients. It's important to define what you're supposed to do within the regulatory framework to manage expectations, but it really has to be a mutually beneficial activity. So I have my email address here, and I believe the slides will be shared later. Please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions now or any questions that you might think of later. I'll be more than happy to answer. So with that, I will say thank you and hand back to the chair.
Go ahead.
I have a question to Maria. My name is Gudula Petersen from Grüntal, specialized in pain treatments. And I have a question about patient-friendly medicines leaflets, because this is an initiative from the FDA. I know they are working very hard on this. What is EMA doing in this area?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. We are looking at all sorts of different ways of improving the patient information leaflet. So that we currently are discussing with our quality review of document group, and they are looking at changing the format of the package leaflet. We have patients and also healthcare professionals involved in a subgroup that's working with this group. We are also looking at electronic product information. So there's a lot of things that are ongoing in the background in order to make sure that patients receive appropriate information, up-to-date legitimate, validated information in a timely fashion to help them with their treatments. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I wish you a good rest of meeting.